Welcome to East by West Farms. Here we grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Today I'm going to show you what survived the garden after our first frost. We are in the middle of November, and usually we don't get frost until after Thanksgiving, but there's no usual Texas weather, and this year we actually get a very early frost in the middle of October. In front of me is the destruction of the frost. I have sweet potato ones that dried up. I have some peanuts that look like dried up, and the okra. On the other hand, the peanuts in the back over here survived. We also have winter vegetable that sprouted like the mustard green and the green onions. So I'm going to show you a tour of the garden to show what actually survived the first frost and what start to really strive for the first frost. In front of me is a mix of peanuts and peppers. Chris trying to cover them before the light frosts come. Unfortunately, in Texas, around this time when we have a weather change, is accompanied by very strong wind, and the cover cloth was get blown off, so this area was not really protected. So you can see quite some frost damage over here. The pepper here, the top is almost pretty much dead. If I trim this, and if you look at the bottom, the leaves are still alive. Since the weather here is so unpredictable, we don't know what this winter is going to be like. It might be that it's the only frost we get, or we could get a minus 20 degree Fahrenheit like last time. Another thing we could do is stack it up, put it in a pot, and winter them over the winter. But we're just too busy for that. So I'm just going to trim all these top out and leave it in the garden. So if we do have another, if it's not too deep frost, we can cover it with a 5-gallon bucket, and it might survive the winter. This patch over here, these very things, actually they are all self-sprouted. These are peanuts that we harvested last year, but you always have some peanuts left over, and then they self-sprout. I think I can see some peanuts over here. Actually, they look pretty fat, but since I don't need this patch for my fall vegetable, I'm going to leave like this. I just prune the top off, and so that some of the small peanuts have a chance to fatten up, and wait until if there's a big freeze that kills everything, then I will dug them up for our roasted peanuts for winter. This patch over here is about 10 feet from the pepper and the sweet potato patch, and it was covered well. The wind didn't blow the cover off. There's much less frost damage over here. We still have sweet potatoes that have some damage, but not too bad, and they are still growing. We have tomato over here that actually I got a red one that I can harvest. That's a $1,000 tomato. And the interesting thing is even the okra that kind of stand out didn't get much damage, and it actually have a fruit. Maybe we will still get something out of these poor guys. While I'm rummaging through here, I can see that I have 4 plants sprouted. There's some of the brassica sprouted. Oh, and I have the tomato is still blooming. This is how crazy the Texas weather have been. We had almost 50-degree Fahrenheit drop in one day. It was like in the 80s in the morning, and then at night was just about freezing. It lasted for 2 or 3 days, and then it bounced back to the 80s. The plants are really confused, and I was very depressed because the freeze come much earlier than expected. Usually we don't get the first frost until after Thanksgiving. I was hoping that the plants will have, the summer crop will have a nice fall to extend the growth season. The freeze, of course, didn't really help, but so I'm glad this patch that survived, the cover really helped, and if we don't get a freeze soon, we might still get some summer crop harvest. But the interesting or the biggest surprise I found in this patch is this kohlrabi. I planted this kohlrabi in spring, and again we had a very short spring, and then the temperature shoot up in early May, so the kohlrabi didn't do well, but I decided to not take them out. I just want to experiment to see what happens. This one is terrible at the bottom, that through summer I thought it's dead. I just left it on. But then it's not dead. It's actually gave a new kohlrabi bulb on top of that. It's almost like a resurrection. So I'm so happy to find this in this patch. This area was not covered at all, so I had a tomato plant here that covered most of this area, and the top all died out. So I just chopped it off and was planning to come here to plant some fava beans. But I left the roots intact because I just want to leave it in the ground. I don't want to disturb the soil. And surprisingly, since we got nice weather after the first freeze, it actually started shooting new growth. I will leave it be and see what this little guy is going to do during the winter. I put this wire cage over here and use it as in situ composting, but also, of course, as a trellis that for things to climb up. Another advantage of this wire cage, it actually creates a shielded area to protect the plants behind it, because that's where usually the cold wind comes from. That's the west wind. That creates a microclimate that for the peppers that are still doing well, and even basils, which it really don't like the cold, didn't have much damage at all. We will leave it be. The thing with the basil plant is I want it to produce some flower and the seeds, because they self-seed very easily. They are fragrant, so that insects don't like them. So I kind of just let them grow everywhere in the garden. Growing right next to the sweet potato that survived the first freeze, I have garlic that self-sprouted. Because we have a very hot summer, the garlic that left in the ground didn't get rotten or anything, and then they are sprouted when the weather cools. And I have a big one over here, and I can see over here there are some wheat which we use just pull them out and drop it as fertilizer. I also see quite a lot of brassica that are sprouted over here. These look like radish to me. So the survived sweet potato actually provides shelter, some shelter for them to keep the insects and all that confused. But then when the sweet potatoes dies out because of the temperature, these guys will take over, and that will provide food for us during winter. Here in Texas, the weather is so unpredictable that it's very difficult to plant by the calendar year. For example, for this year, the temperature was very high until October, and we didn't get much rain at all. When the weather starts cool, like in September, I start to putting seeds down. I just throw seeds everywhere. Some of these maybe from seeds from the spring that I put down. And then they choose when they want to grow. They kind of cluster together because of the microclimate. Here are our food for the winter. In this area, actually, there are different stages of growth for the brassica. Like over here, they really have big leaves, and they are kind of full grown. I guess if you want, you can harvest and pull them out. Over here, these are just kind of started, and the same thing in the back over here. And then on this corner over here seems to be they're just sprouted. The reason for that is the microclimate and the water. In summer, we water this area, so the runoff kind of collect on this driveway. And that's where actually the brassica started, even though the temperature was high. But at this slope, they started later until we got rain. And then over here, they didn't sprout until we get a really heavy rain and when the weather cools. They essentially choose to do succession planting. You can just take the leaves from the side and they will continue to push new leaves. As long as we don't get a very deep freeze, they will last through the winter and then bloom in spring to provide another set of seeds. So we can have food at different stages, and as time goes, we'll have fresh food through the winter, hopefully. Another vegetable that likes the cool weather, of course, is garlic. This garlic is self-sprouted from last year. I actually don't grow them for the bulb because I don't use a lot of garlic in my cooking, but I grow them for the greens. Where I came from, we actually use garlic green in the cooking quite a lot. That's why they are not separated one by one. They are kind of bundled together because I didn't bother to dig the bulb up. And I let them grow and start to cut the green for cooking. Next to the garlic are the green onions. Originally from the green onion I bought from Walmart. So we basically ate the top and plant the lower 1.5 inches, which we have a video on that. And then that grew and produced seeds, and then I spread the seeds around. So then these are, I don't know how many generations after that. Every year it's very reliable, like around this time I will have green onion pop out in the garden everywhere. And of course that we use for cooking quite a lot. I see some of the cilantro growing in this patch. I planted fava beans last weekend, so they probably still take a few more days to break the ground. Now it's actually time to plant other cool season vegetable. If you have not done so, like cilantro can sprout at around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And fava bean is a good time to plant now. Even peas. For the forecast, we will not have a freeze temperature in the next 10 days, since we cannot know when we'll get freeze or whether we will get freeze temperature again. I will just go ahead and plant it. In this video, I give you a garden tour to show what's survived the first frost and what we are growing for food for winter. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below. If you have not done so, please hit the subscribe button to follow the journey with the East by West Farms.